Duchess of Sussex said that she believed that she was one of the most bullied people in the world. Can we now say that the Princess of Wales has taken that title? William is trying to modernise it within the royal family. Harry has thrown his toys out the pram and is trying to modernise his role outside of the royal family. And I think I know which one will be more successful.
I'm sure that just to be able to get back on email, to get back to meetings, to have that connection with the real world, has been a source of great comfort for her.
Prince Andrew has somehow secured enough funding to stay at Royal Lodge.
Who is paying £3 million on go? Like, this is the part I can't wrap my head around.
Hello and welcome to Royal Exclusive. I'm Matt Wilkinson, the Sun's Royal Editor. And with me in the studio today is Bronte Coy, news.com.au's Royal Reporter, and Katie Nicholl, Vanity Fair's Royal Correspondent. Welcome to you both.
Hello. Thank you.
Right, I'm going to start on a negative this week. Oh. Okay.
Well, there we go.
Bring it down.
We're setting the tone for the show.
Right, I'm ready.
But Katie, what's wrong with people? And I mean this because we've seen the Princess of Wales out this week. We hoped that she would be at the Remembrance Day events, and she has been there, and it's been wonderful. But we've gone back 6 to 9 months where people are looking to criticise her and to put vicious posts online. And there's one specific post that's got a lot of traction this week, and this is what I can only say is basically a Z-list celebrity that has got a lot of exposure for, I think, basically putting a post on criticising the way the Princess of Wales looks, questioning whether she's aged. And it's a really gross post. And I say, we've kind of gone back 9 months, but what's wrong with people? Why does the Princess of Wales' comeback attract kind of this hate in certain circles?
I don't know, and I'm kind of reluctant to give it too much airtime because I think, as you say, it's just someone with an opinion, and frankly, an opinion that didn't need to be aired. I think the person in question wondered whether the only reason that the Princess of Wales could have looked the way she did was because she'd perhaps been smoking, and that was why she looked aged. I think most people looked at the Princess of Wales and just thought, well, it's pretty remarkable that you're here, not just on the Sunday at the Cenotaph, but of course she was at the Festival of Remembrance at the Royal Albert Hall. We know that this was a really important weekend of commemorations that she wanted to attend, along with the trooping earlier this year. We've only seen her a handful of times. And of course, she is a busy young mother. She has gone through probably the hardest year of her life. She has gone through some pretty gruelling treatment, major surgery, and psychologically having to come to terms with a cancer diagnosis. It's a lot. And I think to be able to go through that and to still be out there addressing, facing, supporting the public. I mean, we look to the royals at times like this to lead the nation in remembrance. It's incredibly important. I think there would have been, not criticism, but people would have wondered if she hadn't been there. She obviously put a lot of effort into being there, and I think to then be criticised for how she looks, I don't know why it happens. And as you say, it feels like we're going back a few months when there was all of that Kate-spiracy, as it was called, on the internet about why she hadn't been seen in public. And you would have thought that perhaps people might have learned. The reason, of course, we now know she wasn't in public was because of what she was coming to terms with. And yet that doesn't seem to be enough to just educate people to perhaps think and take a breath before posting or tweeting or saying. And just remember that we are dealing with human beings.
Exactly. And there was the second part to it. OK, so the initial tweet was deleted and the person in question apologised and said it was insensitive. But for me, even the more confusing part was the follow-up, which was the apology video, which this is where we really went back in time. It was creating a platform for discussion about how sick Kate was, exactly what was wrong with her. And bearing in mind, she has put herself out there in a way we haven't really seen from the royals in sharing how she's felt about her health journey. She's given us more information than she had to. And I think that people have largely respected that. And so for there to be a platform again for dissection of what's wrong with her and whether she's reacted the right way to it, whether she's had too much time off work, which was one of the sort of subtexts of the apology video. I think that was really disappointing. And as you say, she's a human being. People that are watching on and that draw inspiration from Kate and Charles throughout the whole year of them getting on with work and getting back into life. She stepped out, she's doing her job, people really happy to see her, and immediately it's about her appearance. And I think that would be really disappointing and difficult for just other people that see themselves in Kate.
Yeah, I just can't understand why her appearance there on Remembrance Day attracts. It wasn't just that one tweet. There was other things going on. There's other people, you know, that seems to say Kate Spiracy's come up with these kind of ideas. But I was there. She appeared with Sophie, the Duchess of Edinburgh, because Queen Camilla wasn't. She was. We'll talk about this later, but she's had a chest infection. So Catherine would have stood next to Queen Camilla, but Sophie came in, and as we were watching her. Princess of Wales actually looked very happy. So I know some pictures she looked like she was very sad, and it was a very, you know, because it is quite emotional when you're down there at the cenotaph, but she looked like she was enjoying herself. She was with Sophie, she was relaxed. And when the Princess of Wales went to walk back in, did you see the Duchess of Edinburgh placed her hand on the back of on the back of Kate? I thought that was nice.
It was a very simple gesture, wasn't it? But I think in that moment you just see that clearly she has been a support to Catherine. They get on very well. They're very close, the Duchess of Edinburgh and the Princess of Wales. And I think that's just a reminder that, as well as being these role models that people look up to, and the King obviously being head of state, they are just ordinary, normal people. And I think there's nothing more levelling than something like a critical illness, actually, to enable people to empathise with the royals. And I think that connection and empathy is something that has really come out of this year. It is just, as you say, Bronte, very disappointing that when it comes to an important event like this, the focus for some is on the princess's appearance rather than the fact that she's actually there.
Yeah, I don't want to give too much oxygen to the kind of negative comments and stuff like that, but just before we move on, this year has been tough for both William and Catherine, and you know, everything that's gone on, and also the comments, the reaction as we're talking about, and the disbelieving, you know, certain elements of her story. Cast your mind back to a couple of years ago, and the Duchess of Sussex said that she believed that she was one of the most bullied people in the world. Can we now say that the Princess of Wales has taken that mantle, taken that title?
I think that all members of the royal family have had their moments of being sort of under scrutiny, a lot of scrutiny, and something that a lot of other high-profile figures don't really get the same level of. I think that what we've seen this year, that flashpoint earlier this year, particularly around February, March with Kate, you know, when there was mystery surrounding why she was absent from the public eye, I think that was a moment of that would have left them with a lot of shock, Kate and William, because they had never really experienced it to that level before. I think that does equate to bullying. But I also think that something that is quite heartwarming is that Kate and William seem to have a lot of public support on their side, particularly in Britain, and there's a fierce protectiveness that I think we've seen a lot of this year. And I think hopefully that kind of counterbalances, you know, the aspects of bullying in the darkest corners of the internet.
I mean, it's kind of fine to criticise the Duchess of Sussex for some comments she makes about the royal family, or Harry for his actions against the royal family, or Prince Andrew. You know, it's kind of almost fine to, but it's when it's personal against somebody who's gone through a really difficult year and had cancer that I've really struggled to kind of understand why on earth people are getting involved. But there we go.
Particularly when she has shared so much. Yeah. She has shared along the way, and I think that part should be respected.
Now, one thing that is positive, let's get from the negativity, let's forget what happened at Remembrance, is it's nearly Christmas. Well, it's not really Christmas, it's November.
Well, it is nearly Christmas, by the way.
Yeah, the John Lewis advert has come out.
Yeah, so then you know it's nearly Christmas.
But the Princess of Wales has shared the news that she is well enough to hold her carol concert this year. Are you looking forward to that?
Yes, I really am, because I think 2024 did not start the way that anyone expected or hoped it would. I mean, when you think back to January, Matt, we were really looking forward to loads of the big projects that the Prince of Wales was going to be doing. And obviously, a lot of that's been put on the back burner. Her early years work, particularly, there were tours that were planned, and none of that's been able to happen. So I feel that the year ends on a note of hope and optimism for her. And I think that's hugely, hugely important, that she's able to not just host, but she's going to attend this event. She's been working on it behind the scenes. I'm predicting a big family turnout. I think the Middletons will all be there. I think the children will all be there. You know, this is Catherine's baby. This is very much her thing. I think she's done this for the past 4 years. She loves it. She's passionate about it. She's going to have a great turnout of celebrities. There's going to be wonderful music. The Abbey's going to be beautifully dressed for Christmas, and she looks forward to it, as do the children. So I think it's just a way of ending what has clearly been a very turbulent and difficult year on a high. So I'm delighted. I'm really looking forward to it. And I think lots of people will be tuning in to watch it on ITV on Christmas Eve.
Well, it's become not just a fixture in her calendar, it's a fixture in our calendar.
Absolutely,
on Christmas Eve, it comes on. It's interesting that that the palace has said that because they're every year they're themed. Okay, so there's a certain theme. It might be around a certain charity or a certain event that's happened this year. This year it'll be themed to reflect the importance of love and empathy. Okay, and we'll give time to reflect on how much we need each other, especially in the most difficult times of our lives.
I think we're going to see a lot of this from the royals moving forward. There's going to be, I think that they all would have had a lot of personal reflection and change throughout the year because it has been such a challenging year for all of them. We've really heard about that from William recently. And I think that it's nice that they're getting on with business, so to speak, and getting back to some normalcy, but they are bringing with them this sort of newfound understanding and care and reflection of the time with family and the things that are important. I think we're going to see a lot of that moving forward. It's going to become part of, events exactly like this. And we also know that, to further what you were saying before, is that Kate has been looking forward to this event because you can tell there's been whispers of her wanting to come back and make this something that she was able to return for, and this is going back months. So the fact that we are at the point now where it is happening and it's been confirmed is really exciting.
Well, when she was gradually coming back in the summer, I mean, the palace were telling us, weren't they, that she actually finds great joy in being able to do her work. How much involvement do you think she will have in this? Because you mentioned about the piano. Were we going to expect the Princess of Wales to come back and play the... Because that was wonderful when she played the piano with Tom Grennan.
That was a wonderful moment, wasn't it? Listen, I'm not sure whether she's going to be involved in the performance at all. I think, if anything, certainly she's been very much involved behind the scenes. She's been, taking meetings. She'll be involved in the whole structure of the event. I mean, we've yet to see. I mean, the capacity for surprise, never underestimate it. But I think it's more just her being able to be there. And to your point about taking joy from her work, I think one of the things for anyone that's going through treatment or a crisis when it comes to their health is, when the matter of your health has been shaken and it shatters your world. And so actually, I'm sure that just to be able to get back on email, to get back to meetings, to have that connection with the real world, has been a source of great comfort for her. And we know that when you watch her doing her engagements, you watch her going and visiting her charities or her patronages, she's always smiling. The wonderful thing about Catherine, and the reason she's always making the front pages, is because that smile lights up any room that she's in. And it's not forced and it's not fake or artificial. It's genuine and it's authentic because she takes great joy from the work that she does. So, I think we've seen the same with the King. I mean, it's his birthday this weekend and he's let it be known that the greatest gift, because what do you buy the King who has everything, is actually being able to get back to work. They love what they do. They have this unique platform. They know they can make a difference and they take great joy in doing just that.
We had Remembrance Weekend where we saw the Princess of Wales on the Saturday and the Sunday, and we'll have the Carol concert. We've kind of been waiting all year for her to kind of come back to work because we're greedy and we want to see the Princess of Wales back.
Well, I think also we want to see that she's doing well. I don't just think it's greedy. I think, when you put it out to the public, it's like they want to see her. I mean, when you go back to those months where she was absent from public life, it felt very strange.
You could feel it, absolutely. And she's the superstar of the family, that's the truth. She
is. And, when I think she's cherry-picked the engagements or the events where she has been publicly visible very carefully. The Trooping the Colour for the King's birthday, Wimbledon, which was just personal to her, Cenotaph because that's so important, and the Christmas Carol concert. And it's almost like those events will punctuate this year in the hope that we'll kind of almost forget about how difficult the start of the year was when we didn't see her.
Well, let's say it's not quite Christmas yet and it's not quite New Year yet. We've got plenty of weeks, there's plenty of time to go. But I was in Cape Town with Prince William and we managed to get 8 or 9 minutes time to chat to him, put a few questions to Prince William. And it was, personally, I think it's one of the most revealing interviews that he'd given in such a long time. It wasn't recorded. It was, it was to the written press. And I think he really kind of opened up and we'll talk about it in detail in a minute. But one of those parts was he said that they were planning some trips in the new year. So it is on a positive curve, isn't it, that next year the Princess of Wales and the Prince are looking forward to doing more events, possibly foreign trips. Even
the fact that he did seem to speak so much more candidly while he was in Cape Town, there are a few things that came out. Even that alone, to me, it indicated that they clearly have moved into a new phase now with Kate. He's not as guarded. He's able to speak a bit more freely. He just seemed quite relieved, to be honest. That was the mood that seemed to come through, which is wonderful news, obviously.
Yeah, well, it seemed like he was light-footed. He was. It seems like the weight was off his shoulders. He seemed a lot more relaxed, a little bit more confident, and happy, which was good to see. And this is the important thing I think about this interview is that we said to him, we thought the King has spoken. You know, well, he's addressed the issue of his cancer. The Princess of Wales has done the 2 videos and addressed her cancer. The Queen Camilla has spoken about, you know, off-the-cuff remarks. We haven't really heard much from William. What do you think of his reaction when he said this? You know, he literally took a breath and said, honestly, when we said, you know, what is the, or when the pool said, what has it been like for you, sir? He took a breath and he said, honestly, it's been one of the worst years of my life. It's been brutal. It's been dreadful.
Yeah, I think it was very important that he did that. I mean, we were talking earlier, weren't we, about the royals and their relatability and their connectability. And I think that is so important. And they have connected to ordinary people on in a way that I don't think they ever have done. Yeah. And very sadly, it's been because of something like cancer, but it is a great leveler. And I think had he not spoken, this Prince of Wales who champions mental health and has spoken about the importance of mental health being as important as physical health, we'd be thinking, well, hang on a minute, you need to practice what you preach. I think he was very generous with his time. He was, I mean, you were on the ground, I wasn't, but, you know, he doesn't give those interviews very often. But I think if he was ever going to do it, this was the right time. And as we know with Prince William, nothing is ever done by accident. He obviously felt comfortable enough to do it. The Earthshot prize giving had been a great success. Africa is somewhere where he feels very at home. I mean, it's where he proposed to the then Kate Middleton. It's where he went after his mother died. He obviously feels, I think he feels quite a soul connection to Africa, and he obviously felt that this was a place where he could open up. And I think it's wonderful that he did because, you know, I've sat in this chair talking to you about this before, Matt, and I've thought about this a lot, that this young man has had to shoulder an enormous amount, not just the fear of losing his wife and the mother of his children, but the question mark over his father's health. And with that, perhaps his own proximity to the throne. These are huge things for him to have to deal with while propping up the royal family and letting everyone else think that everything's going to be okay.
That was one of the things that really struck me from it as well, is that when he said that in such an honest way, I thought, the amount of times we've seen him out and about, smiling, getting on with it, giving polite, friendly answers to members of the public, as he should do, but throughout the whole year. And he was obviously going home to some really difficult times, and it really just made me think he's had a game face on all year. They all have. And it really was that reminder that they get on with it and they seem like they're doing all right when they're out and about. But he has been, after that brief break he had earlier in the year to support Kate when she was undergoing treatment, he's had to just go out and get on with it. And also, as you say, speaking of propping up the royal family, we are still relatively in the transitional phase from the late Queen to King Charles, really, where it's only been a couple of years. And so it is still that period of them establishing, you know, the monarchy and what it's going to look like. And with so much uncertainty around it with their health issues, that's a massive thing for him for the majority of the year. I
do. I get the sense, like stepping back as we are now, when you have these massive life-changing events in a year or in a couple of months, that does change your outlook on life. And I wonder if what we're getting now in the last couple of weeks and months is seeing that in William, that whatever has happened this week or what has happened this year with the cancer with his father and his wife has dramatically changed his outlook on life and changed the way that he wants to proceed as Prince of Wales. Well,
I think so. And as you're saying that, I'm thinking of the video that Kate allowed to go out, you know, with very intimate family moments, you know, behind closed doors at Anma, which we've never seen. I think we are seeing a new level of transparency, not just in them sharing their cancer diagnosis and that we know the King's going through weekly treatment. I mean, you mentioned the late Queen. That would never have happened. We never got those sort of medical briefings. It was private, it was medical, and that was it. And I think it's important. I think they've got the tone right. I'll be very interested to see what the popularity polls are showing sort of towards the end of this year, early next year, compared to perhaps at the start of King Charles's reign. You're right, we are still in that transition period. I suspect the popularity for the royal family after this year will be at an all-time high.
Yes.
Ignoring the comments that we spoke about at the beginning, that's just a
But Matt,
minority.
I think that's the minority. Yeah. I really do.
I think you're right.
I think there's corners of the internet that will jump on that stuff always, but I think there's been such an outpouring of support and empathy for the royal family this year that we really haven't seen before.
I agree.
So you talk about the openness and transparency and the willingness to kind of talk about emotions. Is this what, because also in his interview he spoke about royal family with a small r. What do you think that means?
I think that's all part of... When he was 18, I think it was when he was 18, he said he didn't want to be an ornamental royal.
Okay.
And I think this is all about William as Prince of Wales almost setting out the benchmark for what his reign will one day look like. And we don't know when that's going to be, but it's not going to be royal with a capital R. It's like he's not going to be political with a capital P. It's almost, it's not downplaying it. This comes with huge respect for the institution and everything it stands for. I think it's just him wanting to do it his way. So rather than always being addressed as Sir, you know, perhaps first name terms, perhaps not always needing to wear a tie, perhaps actually rolling up the shirt sleeves. It's taking royalty to the next generation. That's my interpretation of it.
I think it's so interesting that we heard him say this because, well, first of all, to define how he said it, he said, it's more about impact, philanthropy, collaboration, convening and helping people. And I'm also going to throw empathy in there because I really care about what I do. It helps impact people's lives. And I think we could do with some more empathetic leadership around the world. What's interesting about this quote is we have actually discussed a lot on the show in recent weeks, this new approach that he seems to have brought to his role and that Kate has been doing as well, which is more, and I think this is what he's saying to interpret William's words, it's targeted specific things, causes that they care about. For example, the Earthshot Prize, for example, the homelessness and Kate's early years work. It's less of that traditional, you know, royals going out and opening a bunch of, you know, new leisure centres and hitting as many engagements as they can in a day. It's targeted and it's finding solutions for big problems and things that they can really sink their teeth into over many years. And so it was interesting that he said that because it really is off the back of there being so much discussion about the way that he's approaching it in a different way. And we had suspected that that was the sort of thing that he was looking at doing. Yeah,
he's kind of signposted it in recent years, coming back from the I'll call it a disastrous Caribbean tour, because it was, you know, spectacular. And they learnt the errors of that. They learnt what the mistakes were, and they said, we're going to do things the Cambridge way, as they called it then, because that was before the Waleses. And then in Singapore last year, he talked about wanting to have more impact. I do worry that it might be some of the quotes you're reading out there that he actually said could it be interpreted as like California speak? You know, could it be looked at a little bit soft?
Well, there is difficulty. So I personally, I love seeing, you know, the younger royals getting out there and really throwing themselves into things they care about. I think it's been wonderful to see. I think they're doing really great work. I do wonder down the line what it looks like if there is too much of a dramatic shift, because the very institution that they are representing is one that is very historic and people are very dedicated. The people that support them are very dedicated and committed to what that already looks like. Look at the late Queen's popularity. So if it moves too far away from that, I do wonder how that goes in the long run for them, because the idea of the royal family is one that's very sacred to a lot of people. And I don't think, I mean, we've seen in recent years, big changes aren't particularly wanted by a lot of people. So I do wonder how they'll approach it. I think it probably shouldn't be too quick or too dramatic, but, you know, more of a gradual change into the new era.
Well, I think he's 100% committed to the ceremonial stuff. I mean, trooping, investitures, you know, at the cenotaph and stuff like that. None of that will go. It's just his way as a 42-year-old man of saying, this is how I want to, you know, step into the Prince of Wales role. Can I be naughty and ask you, Katie, whether you think what he's said in the last couple of weeks, or the changes that he's made while he's been Prince of Wales to the role compared to how his father ran it, do you see similarities there in what Prince Harry has done in the USA, where he's wanted to, let's say, speak more openly, speak about empathy, speak about this kind of stuff, and also, you know, champion smaller causes rather than take on these kind of huge royal family events like the Caribbean tour?
I was actually thinking exactly that as you were talking, because I was thinking one person who's probably sitting there thinking, but this is what I've been saying all along, is the Duke of Sussex. You know, let's be more open. Let's show more empathy. Let's do things a little bit differently. I mean, you know, one of the reasons that Harry felt he needed to leave was because he didn't feel he could bend the institution the way he wanted to do things. And you know, I think we have seen the royals take a leaf out of his book. I don't think it's ever going to become too California, too that sort of psychobabble that actually no one really understands. They're not going to allow that to happen. That's not them.
Yeah.
It's one thing opening up. It's one thing seeing that the king give a big hug to someone rather than just shake their hand, or admit, as he did the other evening, that the documentary that the Queen had done on domestic violence had reduced him to tears. That's fine. That's relatability, connectivity, and empathy. But the backbone of what they do isn't going to change. That sort of service to others, lifelong commitment to duty, that backbone that props the whole institution up. That's not going to change. So I think it's modernising at some pace, but I think it's only now had the opportunity to do that because the late Queen's reign was so lengthy, it didn't have the opportunity to modernise the way it is now. But I think you're right, can't jump too quickly ahead of the curve. It has to keep up. But I
do love seeing this work being done.
I
think
do
there's
too,
been
and I think
incredible
the public
projects.
do.
Yeah.
I think the public do.
Yeah.
It had to change, that's the point.
Yeah, no, it's just interesting to see, like, William is trying to modernise it within the royal family. Harry has thrown his toys out the pram and is trying to modernise his role outside of the royal family. And I think I know which one will be more successful. I'm really looking forward to seeing how it develops over the next couple of years, because we've still got another 5 or 6 years of Earthshot, 6 years of Earthshot. We've got, Princess of Wales's annual Christmas Carol concert. So there is a whole, a decade plus of seeing how this new changes that William and Catherine are bringing into their roles are going to play out. So,
and I think also a big factor in the changed approach is also, just as we've talked about before, this year. This has been a really dramatic and emotional year for them, and they have shared a bit more than usual, and I guess that's how they're going to proceed now as well. So I like it. I think it's working. I think people are connecting with it.
Good. Someone that maybe people aren't so connected with, unfortunately, is Prince Andrew. Okay, now this saga's been going on for a long time, as we know. But one of the main issues is him at Royal Lodge. Vast mansion. It's in disrepair. Not as bad as people say. It's still it's still got gardeners and it's still got people, servants and stuff like that there.
I think we'd all happily move in.
We'd all happily move
just
in.
Not with Prince Andrew.
Exactly, just not with Prince Andrew. Maybe with Sarah Ferguson, that'd be fun.
Actually, she'd be great fun.
Yeah.
But we now know that Prince Andrew's money has been taken away, his annual allowance by the King. He has removed it, and that we don't know where this money's come from. Sometimes finances, as we've seen recently with things like Dispatches programme, or Andrew himself with Epstein, when he took money off, or Epstein gave money to pay off Sarah Ferguson's loan, or we got the oligarch that he sold his former house to for £3 million over the asking price. Sometimes money is the Achilles heel. Do you think we should know how Andrew has secured money to remain in Royal Lodge?
My feeling on this is, look, he's out of royal duties now, so there's a degree of he can go about his life as long as it's above the line. With that said, as you've just mentioned, he has incredibly bad form in the past with choosing his associates, and given his proximity to a lot of influence now, he has people's ear. Whether or not they listen is a whole other thing. But he is in the royal circle. He's the King's brother. So the fact that there is suddenly £3 million or something thereabouts is what's being reported, being given to him apparently indefinitely to fund him. Is it just a one-way generous offer that's come from, well, who knows? Is it for a set period of time? Is there something Andrew was going to do in return? I think information like that is what's probably making people nervous because, as I said, he's got very, very questionable taste when it comes to choosing who he will align himself with. And also at a point when, again, as you said, he's sort of been stripped of all of his funding, any kind of lifeline, especially one of this size, you would assume would have been jumped at and possibly... I want to use the word desperate. He would have been desperate. He's desperate to stay in Royal Lodge.
Yeah, he doesn't want to leave. The King's not going to kick him out because they're brothers after all. Royal finances are complicated, right? But essentially it comes down to the public expenditure and then the private expenditure. Public expenditure, there's a great level of transparency around. We know where the sovereign grant and how it's spent. But when it comes to the private finances, much, much harder to get into that. And clearly, Prince Andrew is not a poor person. He has got inheritance from his father, from his mother, and I would imagine he's probably having to dip into that to stay at Royal Lodge because, quite rightly so, the King has cut off that financial tap, as he did for Prince Harry, because Andrew is no longer a working member of the royal family. I mean, that could never have gone on indefinitely. I think the problem for Charles is Andrew doesn't want to leave Royal Lodge. It's where he lives with Fergie. He's digging his heels in. And he'll stay for as long as he can afford to stay. And obviously there is money that he is able to use.
Well, yeah, he's got money from the sale of the chalet. Do you remember? He's got money, I would have thought, from the Queen Mother and his mother,
Absolutely.
however
A lot
that
of
works.
inheritance.
Or the money went to the king, and it's up to the king whether he gives the money to Andrew. And, you know, he's been a trade envoy for 11 or 12 years. He was working. He was probably, you know, able to kind of strike deals, I suppose, if he was kind of travelling abroad. But what we understand is that the keeper of the Privy Purse, the guy in charge of the royal finances, has signed off the money that Andrew has received from somewhere, saying it is legitimate. I'm just very nervous. I'm trying to find out where this money's from, by the way.
And what is
it's very
legitimate?
difficult.
What does just not fraud? Like, what does legitimate mean in this case? I just think with Andrew, people are very nervous, as I said, because it's Prince Andrew, and I think that there should be a little bit more reassurance from an official source. That maybe not, you know, unmasking whoever the person is, but more reassurance that it's come from somewhere that, you know, people will be comfortable with.
Well, because if there isn't, you see, of course, that puts the king in a very difficult position. And then you've got the proximity of Andrew, the sort of black sheep of the family. It's not an easy position, I think, for the king to be in. But
can the king and can we trust Andrew to find a legitimate source of money to fund the rest of his life?
And that's why the questions are here, because what's in it for them? They might just be an incredibly generous donor, but if that's the case, surely there's other causes that they would have turned their attention to. I don't know.
Well, I think with all of Andrew's links with Kazakhstan business people, and as you say, I think it was the last property that was paid well over the asking price for. It does raise difficult questions.
But I suppose it does allow the king to wash his hands with Andrew now and say, OK, you're on your own, you're funding yourself.
Yes, but Andrew will still be there accompanying them to church on Christmas morning. Yeah. You can't just take him away from the royal family as a family, and that's the problem.
Yeah.
And it reminds people every time he's there, front and centre, which he has been at a few royal occasions over the last year especially, and every time he is, it just reminds people of that part of the royal family's recent history that they really want to move on from.
Absolutely.
So, yeah.
We can't move on because there's constant TV shows as well that, you know, there were two deputations recently of the of the interview. The Archbishop of Canterbury has been forced to resign, or has resigned, here in the UK after, well, let's not get too much into it, but the Archbishop of Canterbury has resigned. I recall back at the Platinum Jubilee, he did an interview, I think with Vanity Fair, or I think Vanity Fair picked it up, this article I was reading earlier today, in which he suggested that maybe we should look for forgiveness or look towards forgiving Prince Andrew. Do you think that's right?
Oh, I don't think the mood music's there with the public. I think that they want to move on from him, but they just don't want him around. I also don't think he's someone who, I personally don't feel he's shown all that much remorse along the way. I don't think it doesn't, and I think that's played a role as well.
Oh yeah, I think for the most part the public would just like Prince Andrew to perhaps go to Scotland and hide away, you know, not to be seen again. And
poor
actually,
Scotland, sorry.
Why Scotland?
No, I said poor Scotland.
Well,
let's not put them on the Scottish.
Plenty of space up there for him, I suppose. But you know, he is a problem for the king. He's a problem for the royal family because you can't see a picture of him or anything else without all of those other headlines coming back up. So it's a difficult one.
Well, just a quick one on the king. So he turned 76 this week.
Yes, happy birthday.
How's he celebrating it? It's quite exciting, isn't it? It's very interesting how the king's celebrating his birthday.
Well, he spent the day visiting a food distribution centre for the project that he launched around his coronation to try and sort this issue of food waste out. Now, that project launched last year. A year on, it's been an incredible success. I can't remember what the figure is, but a huge amount of food waste has been turned into meals.
They said it was 2.2 million meals, which is, I read
that,
incredible, actually incredible.
It's remarkable. You know, I think it's all part of the king wanting his coronation. You were talking about pomp and pageantry, and of course he loves the pomp and pageantry and he's never going to let that go, but he wanted the coronation to be about something more long-lasting than just the coronation. And so he's leaving this legacy. So he visited a food distribution centre. I think it's quite interesting that he wanted to work on his birthday. You know, many 76-year-olds might just want to put their feet up and maybe even have a glass of champagne. But, you know, he will do that. He did that later on. We understand there was a small private gathering. And as I said earlier, the greatest gift, the greatest thing for him to celebrate was the fact that he is able to do the job that he was born to do.
Well, it's like William said about having impact there's no point just turning up, shaking hands. You need to have impact, and the king is using his coronation to have an actual positive impact.
Yeah, and it wasn't just any outing, as you say. It was something that was really in celebration of something he cares about. So that's that's an important celebration. But also the night before his birthday, and this is very much more my speed. He went to the Gladiator premiere, which I loved. Yeah. Gladiator, the sequel, and met with the stars, and looked like he had a good time.
Yeah, no, without doing this again, I was there, and he was chatting to Paul Mescal, and he said, I think he asked him, what do you do in the film? And he goes, well, I'm Lucius. He goes, is that connected to the last film? I will explain during the film, sir. Just watch the film, stop asking too many questions. One thing he does care about is Queen Camilla, obviously. How worried are we about Queen Camilla? She has been back, but her jobs have been curtailed because she has had this chest infection.
I think if we hadn't seen her, we might have cause for concern. She was off the back of a very big trip, which obviously you were on, Matt. I mean, I know when you see the pictures of these tours, it almost looks like they're on a holiday, but it's gruelling, isn't it? It's tough.
Yeah, well, that last job was in Samoa, and the heavens opened. Have you seen the pictures? And she was giggling, she was laughing because everyone was soaked to the skin. Yeah. And it was, Samoa, but it was cold and it was wet. And I do wonder if she,
maybe picked something up there, then she's on a long flight home. And so, I mean, I was told that she was actually in bed with it. I mean, she really wasn't well. But she managed to kick it, and she managed to do a number of engagements, slightly reduced. She didn't attend things for as long as was planned. She wasn't at the Gladiator premiere. She wasn't at the Food Distribution Bank visit. So a couple of things she had to scale back on. But, she was there for some of the Booker Prize things that she wanted to do because she's a big advocate for literacy. And I think it was just that visibility. It was just her being seen for that moment, just to assure everyone, no, I'm not being great, but I'm getting better.
And she did, as she was able to say that. You can hear her say I'm on the mend, so that's always helpful.
But she would have not been at the cenotaph. She really must have been quite under the weather.
That's what really surprised me, because that is the big one that you don't miss. But I assume because, as we said earlier, that she would have been on the same balcony as the Princess of Wales. Maybe they didn't want Princess of Wales picking up her infection.
Yeah, she sounded. You could hear it in her voice at the Booker Prize.
Yeah, she was very full of.
We've had enough of members of the royal family being ill. Yeah. I've had enough of watching my WhatsApp to see if there's any kind of update from the palace on whether they're turning up to events or any kind of news.
No more sick days.
No more sick days.
No. I think from next week, Queen Camilla will be back in full force.
All right, well, let's wish her all the best.
We do
all of them. Right, we have time for our quickfire questions. Okay, if you're ready. They do touch on earlier discussions that we've had, so it might help you. Who has been the most bullied royal ever?
Oh, that's such a controversial question. I'm going to say this. I think that at certain points, as I said earlier, they've all had a round of being in the hot seat. I think Kate earlier this year was really awful, the February-March era. I think that, and whatever I think of her actions along the way, I do think that there was, once Meghan sort of it all turned sour in Britain, I think that, there was at times a pile on with her. But as I say, everyone has had sort of a round of it. I think the women in the family have often been targeted in a way that is not maybe seen with the males. So yeah, that would be my answer.
I think Kate's, I don't know if necessarily I'd say she's been bullied, but I think she's had a tough time in the press, and she has ridden that out for decades now. You think about the weighty Katie and all the the snide sort of jives of doors to manual when she'd walk into nightclubs, or bougie particularly because her parents were in the airline. It's sort of that snootiness towards her. And yet, she rose above all of that with grace and dignity, and ended up having the last laugh, really.
I'll throw the Duchess of York into that as well. Sarah Ferguson, because if we cast our minds back to the 80s and 90s, she was Duchess of Pork. Yeah. People criticised her clothing. It was a bit nasty.
There's a female theme going on here, isn't there?
Exactly. I think the women have all had. I think they get a lot more scrutiny in the royal family.
I think they're easier targets, and goes back to the very first point you made, which was, we're not celebrating the Princess of Wales for being at the cenotaph. We're analysing what she looks like.
Exactly.
I know. It's unbelievable. Right.
It is in 2024.
Yes. It is.
Sort it out.
Hopefully the next generation of royals like Charlotte, etc., will not have to kind of go
Looking at Princess Charlotte, I don't think she's going to tolerate any of that.
I agree with that.
I think that little one is one to watch. She will turn around and face her critics with a very quick comeback.
100% agree on that. Prince William said that it was probably the hardest year that he's had. What has been the hardest year for the royal family?
They regularly talk about 1992, obviously. being the worst year. And in terms of the scale of events, I think like in the volume of events, that's probably it. But I think on a personal level for the core senior royals, you know, Charles, Camilla, Kate, William, surely, as William said, it has to have been this year. This is, you know, for specifically for them, that has to have been the most challenging, difficult, uncertain. I mean, Kate said it herself with the vulnerabilities throughout the year.
It's their health. It's their health. I mean, you know, 92, yes, the collapse of 3 of the Queen's children's marriages, losing Windsor Castle, everything is rebuildable.
Yeah.
And you know, the children went on to remarry again and live happily ever after. You know, this has thrown a major question mark over their health. And I think
their mortality this year.
Absolutely.
You think 2024 has been the hardest year for the royal family, going back like?
I think, as Bronte says, on a personal level, yes, absolutely.
For the core working royals, I think it would have to be
100%.
They started the year not knowing, I assume, what it would look like at the end of it for the King and the Princess of Wales.
Although I have to say, thinking about it now, and you consider back to the death of Diana and what an extraordinary year that was, and when the future of the monarchy looks so unsettled because of the position that the Queen found herself and when the people turned against her, that was a precarious position. I mean, the Queen clawed it back in the most amazing way. But this definitely ranks as one of the most seismic and
looking over the
years.
full year for everything that's happened. I think.
Absolutely.
And it depends if you mean bad year in terms of, you know, their position with the public perception, or if for them personally. I'm talking about personally, I think.
Yeah, OK. It's a very strong argument. I like it. Thank you. A final question. Sorry, just a fun one thrown in at the end. Prince William has been voted the sexiest bald man for the 2nd year in a row.
What do you meant to say to that?
My bald husband is going to be very disappointed with anything I say.
Who is the sexiest royal?
I think bearded William is fair.
I'm not. I've got to be honest. I'm not loving the beard.
Oh no! I think it's really working for him. All of a sudden, I'm like, it's. I had a teenage crush on Harry and William, and I feel like now as an adult, I'm like, I see it again.
Okay,
it's come back.
I think Prince William would be very happy to hear that.
I'm sure he watches. I'm sure he'll appreciate it. Do you have an answer? You don't have to.
I think I've still got a little bit of a soft spot for Prince Harry, and he's got his hair, so.
Okay.
As he talked about in his book.
2 bearded men.
Yes.
Sure. Yes.
Oh, fantastic. Excellent. Well, thanks very much, guys. We covered a lot today. I really enjoyed it, so thanks very much for joining me. Right, well, thank you so much for watching. If you like the show, please let us know in the comments. We do love to read them. And subscribe to the channel so you never miss an episode.